let's get rock and rolling on this. I saw this article on On3 and I loved it, and I thought it would be a great kind of just kickoff for the show once we got past the Gators basketball. And it's interesting because you don't think about this kind of thing just because of how because the sports kind of just move along. But with so much happening in college football and the NFL also kind of making a change of eras and change of quarterbacks and a change of scenery, there's a feel that you could have a new champion aboard here, right? So the question is what's going to happen first? A new college football champion, right? A team that's never won a college football champion, or a new Super Bowl champion, an NFL team that's never won the Super Bowl. I'm going to go to you first, Cowboy Ty, just because I know you're coming in here hot and sweaty. So
It's a struggle, but I'm coming in hot for sure. And
I
I can
love
tell
it.
you it's going to be NFL because the Eagles are winning tomorrow. Ship that.
But they've already
It's a
won one
wrap.
though. They've already won one. So it's
Oh,
a
you mean
team
like
that's
a new
never
new champion?
never won.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Never won. Yeah,
Misunderstood.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like never won at all.
Um,
So
I would definitely still lean towards the NFL, and the reason is because I think you have like your power conferences and your power teams that have already won national titles. Your Alabamas and your LSU's and people like that. To where in the NFL, everyone has a talent. I mean, you're just waiting for a coach, or you're getting the best of the best, and by that I mean these are the best guys from college, and you sit there and you look like anyone can go and win the Super Bowl. You just look, you take Jaden Daniels and you put him on a Commanders team that couldn't do anything last year, and now they are sitting there and they're in the NFC Championship game. Very easily, could have won. A little few pieces here and there, but in the NFL, you're a few pieces here and there away. But in college football, I feel like you're constantly moving people, and the power teams are always, in my opinion, going to have a better chance of winning a national title than someone like Boise, roughly, somebody like that.
sure, I get it. The ease of an NFL team that hasn't won is much more likely to happen than these kind of because again the big blue bloods have already won one. Cody, I'll let you go and then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, let's go new Super Bowl champion. Hopefully a team I like, the Minnesota Vikings, finally winning one next year with whoever at quarterback. I don't even give a shit at this point. Whatever. Whoever they plop back there and it's gonna go on the magic carpet run again.
So okay, so you're thinking the Viking or you're thinking NFL too. Look, I think for next year, I think there's a really good chance for college football. The Ducks are a team that can go and win one who have never won one. And I think they're in a really good position going into next season. I think Ohio State takes a step back. But again, the whole reason the conversation started was because, like you kind of just said, there's a lot of up and coming NFL teams. This show is, of course, brought to you by BetUS. And right now, when you use the code YouTube150 at betus.com, you get 150% back on your first deposit, then 125 on your next two. And with the football playoffs, college football championships and playoffs happening, and then March Madness right around the corner, there is not a better time right now than to sign up for betus.com and use that code to maximize your return. Check it out, betus.com. Use the code YouTube150. Now back to the show. Get after it. That I've never won before, obviously being the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they are just knocking on the door every single year. It's bound to break here eventually. Obviously, Joe Burrow and Bengals, if they would have made the playoffs this year, I think they would have arguably been one of those teams looking heavily at it. Vikings had a really good run last year. They could be someone who's knocking on the door. Detroit Lions were right there, favored to win the whole damn thing, and fell short. Houston Texans, obviously, with CJ Stroud. A lot of those teams are going to be up in the upper echelon of favorites of next year, where college football doesn't have the same thing. But I think Oregon, with a little more favorable seeding, probably would have been in this conversation. Would have already happened. But I think next year will be probably your best opportunity. And I'm not saying Oregon's going to take a step back, but just the way the landscape of college football is, I think there's an open hole for them. And that's going to be next year. Because after that, I really think that unless they get a clamp on this thing, the way that spending is happening, the blue bloods are just going to get bluer. You know what I mean? And being able to expand themselves and really separate themselves where, like you said, Boise and these teams, it's great for them. They'll make the playoffs. It'll be cool. Arizona State, we'll see those guys kind of get some splashes and will build some notoriety for those teams and we'll talk about them for more? Sure. But will they ever get to go on a run? I mean, look at this team that we just saw with Ohio State, the run that they went on, right? And what they were able to do. That team, I mean, arguably talent-wise, is up there in the conversation with some of the greatest teams that when we talk about, we argue about it. Do I say it's the best team to ever win a championship? No, just because I don't feel like it dominated all throughout the entire year like some of these other teams did. But when we look at the talent on that team, by far, it's unmatched. And so a team like that, and look, they kind of single handedly dominated. But look at the teams that were left. Notre Dame, another great stacked team. Those teams that we're talking about, the Boise, Arizona States, they obviously went down pretty quickly. I just don't know if they're ever going to have enough juice to squeak through the top.
I mean,
Yeah, I kind of like. Oh,
go ahead, Cody. Sorry about that.
I kind of like that Oregon pick because here's the thing: a lot of people are sleeping on Oregon. They have got talent and talent and talent, and they're bringing in the best wide receiver of this class and DeCorian Moore. That kid lit it up in the All-Star game. I mean, that kid's going to be this year's, probably the next Jeremiah Smith. I mean, he is absolutely electric. And they do have a quarterback. A lot of people are sleeping on him. Dante Moore is their quarterback, and he's been there in that Will Stein offense for this will be his second year now.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't perfect at UCLA, but a kid that did start,
Played a
does
lot,
have
yeah.
meaningful rep, played a lot.
He's going to his
And
third
now
year.
he's kind of going into his third year. This is it. And a highly rated quarterback. I think he was a 4 or 5 star. At
He was
one
a 5
point.
star. Yeah, he was a dog coming out. And look, I mean, with the amount of hype that Arch has and DJ Lagway, this kid's carrying, like you just said, the same, I would say, backing, if not more, than those two that we just mentioned. He played way more reputable time than Arch and DJ did. And I mean, Arch obviously being the perfect scorer that doesn't carry that or possess that. DJ Lagway being the Gatorade Player of the Year doesn't possess that. But was the number 2 or 3. I think he came out alongside Malachi Nelson and Jackson Arnold. I think the 3 of those guys kind of led that class. I think Arch may have been in. Yeah, Arch was in that class. And we obviously, Arch didn't play a lot in those games or in those bowl games that happened after the fact. But yeah, Dante Moore is no slouch by any stretch. And going into his junior year, it's not like he's just some freshman or sophomore. He's got a lot of playing experience, did a lot of great things at UCLA. And like you just said, has had a year under his belt. And for Oregon, when we see how they attack the portal, how they attack recruiting, they went out there and got some big guys. That 5-star kid who ended up flipping back to California. I don't believe he's a 5-star kid. That's a little weird one with me. But for them not to go after the portal like they did this past year for Dylan Gabriel leads me to believe they trust this
They got
kid.
something cooking.
Yeah. They didn't even, it wasn't even like a thought that we're going to go, look, we got our guy.
Yeah, I'm going back to a point to, you don't think the Arizona States, and all those guys. But I mean, if you go back and you look at them this year, I mean, those guys weren't supposed to be anybody. They were supposed to be 16th in the Big 12.
Yeah.
That's where they were picked. And I can tell you, they gave Texas everything they could handle and more, and possibly a targeting penalty away from, moving forward. So, I mean, I think college football is in a pretty good spot, saying that. And I still think we see an NFL champion before we see a new champion, but I do like your Oregon call. I think Oregon is very talented. It seems to me they just can't ever get over the hump. I don't know. Maybe, it's just whatever that is. It just feels like they don't, they don't make the move, like you beat Ohio State and then you go into the Rose Bowl and you lose by 30, it's like,
Yeah.
they don't seem to perform on the big stage like they should. And I think they got roasted by Georgia a couple years ago in the opening round or
Yep.
opening game. I mean,
Dan Laney's
it
first
just
game in
seems
Oregon,
like
but
to
yeah.
me, yeah,